Hey guys, my name is Jason with S&J Forest Products, and on today's video, we're going to do some more logging. Well, we're going to start here. I've got a little section here, probably about 5 acres, that has a bunch of blowdown in it from the last couple of years. And to give you a little background, this area was logged here about 5 years ago. I bought the property about 2 years ago. And so right now I'm just going through, and this is my last little section I got to clean up before I replant. And so all this timber is still really good. These are Doug fir that have blown over, and they can be down for a year or two. These blew over about 8 months ago, and so the wood is going to be still real nice. So I want to get them bucked up and skidded out to the landing so I can get them on the log truck and either send them to the mill or take them up to Fred, my sawmill guy, and we'll cut them up into some cool boards and beams. But the first thing is I got to get it bucked off this stump, bucked down into a couple different logs, and then we'll get it skidded to the landing. So what I've got here is actually two. I've got a Doug and a cedar, both in this big wind-blown stump here. And they go out there quite a ways. But I'm gonna get the cedar bucked off first, and then I'll buck the Doug. And that stump, I think, is gonna flop back down in that hole. So I wanna be careful about that. I left about 8 feet of that stump. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but it's got a pretty good little whoop-de-doo right there. And that's just not good for anybody. Fred hates those things up at the sawmill. The mill will actually dock you some footage for that. And so I just cut it off and left it there on the stump. And the rest I got here is a nice straight log that now I'll buck into some different lengths, and it's got a little crooked crotch in it there, but I really like to buck them into 32-foot lengths. I end up going about 33 for some trim, and that way if the sawmill, if I decide to send them to a commercial mill, I can get paid some good money for them, because 32 foot's a good length. Or 32 is probably somewhere down about in there, right about there. But if I decide to take them up to Fred, then we can cut them down into 2/16s and get some nice wood out of them that way. So 32 is my preferred length. And I'll probably get two 32s and maybe a 16 out of this log. Up here on top, it gets a bunch of branches on it, and that's really no good. And you kind of want, for these Doug firs, you want about an 8-inch top minimum. So we'll see what we can get out of this guy here. Well, right where my axe is there is the 32. And then coming down this log, it gets all screwed up over here. And right where my saw is a 24-foot log. And I can get a 16 and 2/8, or I can get a 16 and an 8, or I can get 2 12s. So 24 is not a bad size, but see here, there's a big whoopty in the log, and then everything above that just has a bunch of branches, and it tapers off real quick down to nothing. So I'm gonna bucket here at 24, and I'll get a 32 and a 24 out of this thing, and I'll just leave the top out here to rot. Now let's buck this butt log here, and it's suspended right there. It's laying on another log, and so I don't know if you saw when I walked down it, it's all just hanging out over there. So as I buck it here, as I come down, both sides of this log are going to want to come up and pinch from the bottom and open up on the top. So my first cut is going to be up from underneath and as far around the backside as I can get. Then I'll come up, across, down the backside, and just come down until that log will start to lift. I'll just come down until I buck it off clean. That's the theory. Well, now we got them drug out of the brush and you can see them a little bit better. And the two Doug fir here on the right are pretty good and straight. This one's a little screwed up at the end here. But look at this cedar with this big, huge sweep in it. The sawmill would not like that. The rule of thumb, I guess, is if you can put your log tape here and stretch it down the log to the other end, the tape should never leave the log. It can kind of wander over the edge, but I mean, if you draw a straight line from that end to that end, it's way over the sweep. So that one's not worth a whole lot to the mill, and it's a teeny tiny little top. But for me, I can buck this thing up into 8-foot sections, take it up to Fred, and in those short sections, we can probably get some 4x4s out of here. It's a 32-foot log. 4 4x4s are worth 50 bucks a piece. So you're looking at about $200 for that log right there is what I can sell it for. The mill wouldn't give you 10 bucks for it because it's a piece of junk. But if you got a sawmill and you can make something out of that cedar, that's where the value is. Now we're going to work on taking out this dead hemlock here. And I don't know if this wood's going to be any good, but it's not, I mean, the trunk's not full of mushrooms and conchs and stuff. And the top still has needles on it and little pine cones. So I think it died this year. And it's not a monster tree, but there's a 32 footer in there and maybe another 16. So I'll get set up and get this thing cut, but I'll show you all the branches are over on the right side here. So it's going to want to drop right out in there. I'm going to try and pull it over here a little bit, and that way I can get over there with my skidder and yank onto it. So we'll try and drop it to the right side of the cedar here. And I think I can make that. All right, so I got it all cleared out so I can work and move around pretty easy. So I'm gonna put my face cut in here, take the wedge out of the bottom so I have my full length of a log there right off the stump. Then I'll come back and I'll put my back cut in here. I might have to wedge it, we'll see. I doubt it, it's got enough weight up there, it's gonna wanna go. So that's the plan. So there's my face cut. It's called a Humboldt cut when you take the waste out of the stump like that. But my face cut is gonna want to make it go that way. And so I'm gonna leave a lot of holding wood on this side. I'm gonna take and cut across the back side there so that it wants to pull it this way towards my face cut. So I've got my saw in there, back in the face cut. And that little black line is a sight line. And that's going to show you where I'm shooting. So right between that stump on the right and that cedar on the left, right down that sight line. It also looks like the wood is really good. There's no rot in there, no heart rot. So that's a good tree to take. If I would have left it for another year or two, it would have been full of mushrooms and rotten. Not even good for firewood, but we'll take it and we can make something cool out of it. A couple beams probably. Let's wedge it over here. I like to take my earplugs out so I can hear it cracking. All right, that worked good. Now we got to get to the landing. Well, and here's the stump. See all my holding wood here, and I actually cut it all the way off over there. And that held it here so it would pull it to the right. I got the wedge bottomed all the way out. And it was actually, that's still a really nice competent tree, because I didn't notice there's a big stump right in here somewhere. And when it came down, it hit there and the butt went up. The top broke out, but that's okay. It's full of knots anyway. So I'll get up here, limb up some of this stuff, get it bucked to a good dimension, then we can get the skidder back in here and I'll yard it out here. to show you how a choker works. This is called the knob and this is called the bell. And these are 6 and 8 foot chokers, what I use, because none of my logs are all that big. And let's do it on this side so you can see. And so the knob goes in the bell like that, and then you turn the bell 90 and the knob slips down on there like that, and then as you pull it slides up, and the harder you pull the harder it chokes that log. And then when you go and drop it at the landing, you just undo it real quick and it's all done. And an old logger told me one time that sometimes you're down in the brush and you can just barely get those two things, and you can get the bell clanking on the knob, but if they can kiss, they can fill in the blank. So that's what the loggers are thinking about. But anyway, that's how a choker works. Let's yard this thing out of the woods and we'll get it to the landing. And since we're right here and I got 2 logs choked up by the skidder already, I'll show you the other half. So there's the bell and knob like we were talking about. And then this guy, I'm not quite sure what these are called, I forget. Midgets? Midgets? I don't know what they're called. But anyway, you can put the end of the choker in there, and then the main line from the skidder, you can pull and slide it up and down the main line here. So I've got 2 logs choked here at the skidder, and then the main line's running out through the brush to that log over there that we're gonna yard out of there. And when you're choking, you always go to the first log and use the last choker so you can pull through. If you use the first choker on the main line, you got 2 behind you and you can't ever get to the next log. So this, let's see if I can do this one-handed. That goes through there like that, all the way through the other side. You bend the choker around through there and it pulls tight. Boy, I fought with those things and now I did it one-handed. That's pretty neat. So now I've got our 2 here. The main line's loose through there. So we're gonna pull that 3rd log all the way to us. That'll bunch all 3 of these up. We'll lift them up off the ground and then we can skid them to the landing. Well, as you can see, I got a bunch of rot there in that butt. And I've been chasing it up. It's there. I've been taking about every 2 or 3 feet. Man, I must have taken 15, 16 feet of the log, and I still got rot in there. Dang it. I've been excited about this log since I saw it blew over, and now it's mostly rotten. Well, let me keep chasing it up there and see if I can get at least a 132 out of it. Man, I had to cut, look at this. I had to cut up to 38 feet on this log before I got out of the rot. And now I went down that way and I busted off at 30 feet. So I've got a 30-foot log. I could have had 2 really nice logs out of this, but man, that rot got me. I don't think I've ever seen a tree rotten almost 40 feet up through the trunk. But we'll get this one out of here. There's a couple more little cedars I got to get, and we'll get them back to the landing. I think we'll call it a day. So here's my pile of logs. It's getting pretty good size. I probably got a log truck load there. But here is the butt log from that hemlock we dropped. And I want to do, I want to scale this log and figure out how many board feet we got in it. And then we can figure out a price for that log. All right, let's scale this log. And you always scale from the top, the small end. And we'll start at 1 foot. This is a 10-inch top on a 32-foot log. And now you can find log scale calculators online. I just did this one. Comes out to about 110 board feet. And so if I was to sell this log to the mill, right now hemlock is about $400 a thousand board feet. And so that would equate to about $44 for this log. Now, if I take it up to Fred and we cut it into some beams and some boards, I can get about 5 or 6 times that much. So if I was to sell it right to the mill, I'd get $44. If I'm going to take it up to Fred, I can probably turn it into about $250 worth of lumber that I can then sell and recoup all my costs. So I probably drug out about $1,000 to $2,000 worth of wood today. I did 7 or 8 turns. The cedar is worth way more than the hemlock and the fir, but when you cut it up into beams, you can sell it all for a pretty good price. So stay tuned for some more sawmill videos that I'm going to be doing. I've got a bunch of logs you can see. My plan is to take them up to the sawmill and get them cut into some beams and boards. So stay tuned for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.